We are imperfect. We all have stuff, but I'm always going to show up for the person that's willing to acknowledge it and do the work, who might slip and have to come back around. I'm always going to be there for that. So that call was hard today. And there was a lot of tears and these are women who have gotten every possible credential. They have checked every box, done it the right way, and they're taking out their whole departments without warning and out here scrambling. And it's hard to watch. And I still say the best thing you can do is take care of yourself because it is on you. So yeah, I'm serious. Go get your colonoscopy. I know you've been waiting. You haven't done this because why don't you go get, you've had eye strain for years. Why don't you get that checked out? We are the last to take care of ourselves because it's always seen as a luxury, and rest and self-care is a right.
Welcome to Therapist Uncensored. Building on decades of professional experience, this podcast tackles neurobiology, modern attachment, and more in an honest way that's helpful in healing humans. Your session begins now with Dr. Ann Kelly and Sue Marriott.
Hey everybody, quick heads up. We are very excited to announce a new course that is going to be launching towards the end of February. Ann and I have been working really hard on it, and what we've done is we've gathered all of the best relational science, made it very accessible, but also keeping the depth of the science itself. This course is going to be for those interested, less about the history of attachment and the science behind it and things like that, and more about, okay, what do we do? We're going to deep dive into each of the defensive activation patterns. We call them blue zone, red zone, tie-dye, and the green zone. So in that way, it's very practical. We do provide 6 CEUs for clinicians, but again, it's also very accessible for anybody that is interested in learning, how to apply attachment and to go beyond just the typical attachment styles. Okay, sign up now for the best pricing. You can find it at therapistuncensored.com/BAS, and that stands for Beyond Attachment Styles, BAS. Therapistuncensored.com/BAS. Okay, hope to see you there. Hey everybody, welcome back to Therapist Uncensored. Sue Marriott here. I'm sitting with my new friend, Pam Benson Owens. If you'll just describe yourself, that would be great.
I would describe myself as a activist, sister, a mother, a daughter of an aging parent, a lifelong learner and educator, book nerd, foodie, and all things hopeful. I think in a world that's not often hopeful. I think that would be how I would describe myself at this time anyway.
We did an incredible episode with you at Kuya live recording. So some people may be familiar with Pam from that episode. And if you are not yet, then I encourage you to seek it out. It was lovely. You said you are committed to the art of divine liberation and purposeful living without limits. I thought that would just be a wonderful place to jump in.
I think that, as we continue to navigate through life, there is enough that we could get stuck on and distracted by. And so there's a lot of definitions of liberation, but in the journey in my skin, oftentimes we don't have the opportunity to talk about liberation being the smaller things, what we find beauty in the mundane and the regular, that we don't figure out, when you were talking about the other podcast, when I got to the end of the year, that podcast was in my list of highlights of the year. And it was because of the sheer humanity and connection and ease and organic connection. And I think we underestimate that. So liberation is a lot of things. Sometimes liberation is my ability to not raise my voice in anger. Sometimes liberation is passing up on the sweet potato fries in the, at the restaurant. Some days liberation is saying no. Sometimes liberation is the freedom to realize that I don't always have to volunteer or make it my mission or have a deep opinion about something. So for me, I have really enjoyed the idea that liberation isn't fixed, it's fluid. And I have found great comfort in that space. And it has also allowed me to not be beholden to my feelings in such a way that keep me caged and like I don't have access to feeling those things. So I talk a lot about liberation. The first half of my life, younger, liberation was protest and anger and burn it to the ground. And I'm going to tell you, and I've got to be right. And now, as I've become more seasoned, it's about not always feeling like I have to say what I think all the time. That it's more important for me to be in partnership with my partner than to prove a point, or not having to always have the answers for my kids. Sometimes liberation is saying to my children, I don't have an answer to that. So for me, it's been a beautiful space to be in. And a lot of people have named for me that that was a permission slip for them to define liberation for themselves. And I think, the more that we do that, the stronger we are. I can't be a community member if I haven't done the internal work to heal myself, to confront my bias, to address my trauma, to speak to the ways in which I have done things that I may have shame around. So liberation continues to be something I'm curious about each day, but I lean into it with full-bodied passion. I think it's the gateway to a lot of things.
Full-throated intimacy.
Full-throated intimacy. Yes.
I love it. And I really like you breaking it down, these small moments, because we are in a period of really intense challenge in our nation and in our communities. So can you say more about that? How do you find liberation when the opposite of liberation is happening all around you? And as an elder in the community, you have a certain perspective on that I don't have. Anyway, I don't mean the answer for you, but part of what I was thinking is you're probably much more used to this feeling than some of us are that have been more privileged and that have just had natural power, not even knowing that we had it.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel some disorientation around me being able to be who I am fully in the space every day. And that comes from, the systemic pieces that you talk about in secure relating, right? The whole section about systems is real, and people discount that. So that in and of itself is challenging because we're talking about an ecosystem of devaluing and challenge historically. And so especially in these last, from the time of kind of this political season until now, I certainly have found it interesting that people are so outwardly shocked about where we are. And I want to hold space for that because I think that just comes from just a pure hope that it would be something else.
And ignorance.
And ignorance. And ignorance. Yeah, pure ignorance, which I hope that people take that not as an insult, but as an invitation, right? We don't all know everything about everything. And sometimes when it's not our lived experience, it's easy for us to dismiss it and act like it doesn't happen. And what I always say is like, just because it's not your lived experience doesn't mean it's not happening. The audacity of some of it might be overwhelming, but don't discount or discredit somebody's experience. How can you then get curious about what that is for somebody without dismissing it? And so I'm not surprised about the things that have happened over this political season. I will say my hope and wish is that people don't get capsized by it, that we start to harness our energy around what we need to do to mobilize to take really good care of each other right now, to extend heaping doses of self-compassion, to pause and be, in more of a responsive and reflective space. I have said more in the last 48 hours, I don't know what I think about that. Let me get back to you. And it's been empowering. Or I don't have an opinion about that, but I'll circle back if I do, because I really don't. Like, I really want to be able to think about it. But will what's happening change the way I show up in the world? It won't. Because for me, hope is a duty, and I take it seriously. So I don't want to resemble any of the negative or hate or ignorance that I might experience. And I try to model that, as hard as it is sometimes, for my kids all the time and the people around me. I've had a lot of people call me who have said, like, I'm sorry. I want you to know that I don't want you to be sorry, because that apology carries a level of heaviness. I want you to think about what is the onboarding of an invitation to show up in the world differently around support and access and kindness and mercy and grace and all these things that we throw out there as words. I want to figure out, like, how do I embody that? I want people to start thinking about, how do I look and sound differently in the name of grace and mercy? That it's almost like, she's so even keeled, she's peculiar. Great. That's what I want, because the other is kind of an easy way out. I could be angry every day about something, Sue, like every day. And I'm not saying anger is not useful, but I love the space of thinking about, what's the new DNA that I want to push into the community? How do I want people to experience me in a way that inspires them to be their true selves? I think that's what heals a community, and not the latter.
And how challenging, just south of us at the border, being in Texas, these things are so stimulating. So I know you won't mind me challenging you a little bit, right? So let's just go to the border for a minute, and the family separations and the deportations. So can you model for us? I really mean this, because I want this liberation and this steadiness, and the truth that's happening as well. What does that look like?
So the border situation infuriates me. I don't see how people can make a narrative around that that's positive. I think it's fascinating to me how people decide who's worthy and valuable and who's not, paperwork or not. I can't fathom that. That's so hard for me to understand. But I also understand that there's this undercurrent of being afraid to lose power if you are of a privileged group. And so to me, the opportunity there is, what are the ways in which I can impact that situation with my gifts and talents and unique perspective that's helpful? Because sometimes all help isn't helpful either. So if I were to go to the border and cause all kinds of crap and endanger the safety, right, of immigrants, that's not the best move. That's help that's not helpful. But if I have an opportunity to impact at the legislative level, or create a letter writing campaign, or create baskets of items that people have said they need, not what I decide they need, but what they say they need, those are really ways to do it. But when it comes to the conversation with the person that disagrees with you, I want people to say to themselves, what cost is it to me if I engage in an argument with somebody that's completely committed to misunderstanding me and the situation at the border? It just might not be the best energy spend. And so I've also learned that I am going to always hold a space on the bus for people that disagree with me, but I'm not going to stop the bus. I'm really looking for people who are willing to evaluate their own lack of conditioning or bias or racism or sexism or homophobia or transphobia, whatever that is. I want to sit with the people who are like, maybe what I thought about that might have some holes in it. That's where I find the opportunity to make traction. So the people who are committed to something else, I don't disregard them. I just don't do huge energy spends on people who are kind of committed to one way of thinking. I'll name that it might be dangerous. I'll name that they're missing out on an opportunity, maybe to know some people that could change their lives. But I let go of convincing, proving, and changing people a while ago. And that's been liberating. So when my grandmother said to me, I'm not coming to your wedding because you're marrying somebody darker than a brown paper bag, it wasn't a good energy spend for me to convince at that point, I think she lived to be 93, a 70-something-year-old woman, that was not great. It just didn't work out. And by its own organic work, she did meet Arlen eventually and ended up liking him, but she was on her way to concluding her life at that point. And so the loss would be on her. But I sleep great at night for not trying to push, change, convince, or make somebody wrong. It's just not a good use of my energy. And I allow people to be exactly who they tell me they are.
I'm wondering about these, I want to say young activists, but it's not just young activists. When you said earlier that you don't want people to collapse, or I don't know the word you use, but I have that fear too, that the overwhelm of it, we just want to dissociate, we just want to pull away. But there's a lot of people that have open hearts and that are feeling all of this and that just can't find a place to rest from. I could be up at the legislature every day. I could be standing vigil. So what do you say to those folks?
You know, I've had a lot of apologies. It's so interesting to me. There's been a couple of times in my life where major things have gone down, like when George Floyd went down. My husband and I received more meals, cookies, groceries, blankets. It was the most interesting thing because that told me people did not know what to do with that level of hopelessness and tragedy and overt racism. Like, what do you do? So you start over snacking people to death. You know, you're sending like whatever. Some people probably would have been offended by that. I saw humanity in that, where you don't know what to do, but you need to do something. And I think part of our societal norms is that we always have to be doing something. Sometimes, like even last weekend when they did a women's march here, I didn't go. I did not attend. And the reason why I did not attend is because I have to preserve my energy and bandwidth for the long game. And so I did not attend. And several people were like, why didn't you go to it? I said, because I am actually tapping out this time. It doesn't always have to be me. I don't feel like educating people today. I don't feel like having perfectly eloquent sentences around how we got here. And so the best gift that I can give to this community is to not attend and rest. And that's a form of resistance, especially for a Black woman to say that, right? Nobody's like calling me like, so proud of you for taking a nap today. But that's what we should be doing with each other, because you don't address challenge well when you're tired and burnt out and angry and not nourished. The best way to address challenge is when you are in a regulated state in this insecure world, as your book entitled, when you have rested and you have taken a moment to really explore what you think about what you think. And that is when you make those small steps of change in our communities, in our households, with our neighbors. Nobody does good work when you're tired, burned out, pissed, and fed up. And we don't talk enough about that. Like, we should stop saying to each other, keep going. Maybe it's go to the woods for a couple weeks and reset, sleep, restore, right? We see it as weakness, but I tap out a lot now. And I feel really good about that, because when I do have to tap in, I am even keeled. I am operating from a place where my gifts can come forward. I am accessing my divine gifts in ways that are clear, and I don't have to question where they're coming from. And I don't sit in a defensive space, meaning I actually hear more effectively when I'm rested and fed than I do when I'm not. And people think, let's keep going. Don't keep going.
That whole secure state, like you're saying, that you can lead from a place of rest versus just reacting and fist waving.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean there's not a time to wave a fist, but if my fist goes up in the air, it is a well thought out, mindful, intentional fist. It's not a reactive, angry, trying to harm and resemble the hate that I experience fist. It's just never going to be. It's going to be deliberate, strategic, and I have even thought of the cost.
Well, so another challenging thing that just happened, speaking of fists, is the arm in the air. So I don't mean to keep testing you, but...
Test me.
So when somebody on that main stage gives a signal that people at least read as Heil Hitler. How do you respond? What are your thoughts?
So in this household that occurred, we were both at home, and my first reaction was I didn't watch any of the footage on the day, but then the clips started coming in the evening, and so I started watching. I probably watched that clip 25 times because I'm really trying to because the first time you're like, what am I seeing? Right. So you're not in your headspace. And so I would probably watch it 25 times. And I said to my partner, Arlen, I said, I am so fearful. This is just scratching the surface about what's to come. We had a long talk about what do we do with the feeling of knowingly bringing kids into this world that we already knew was a hot mess. So that discussion took place. We ended the discussion, and by that time we had poured some brown liquor, because sometimes you just have to pour brown liquor. And we ended the discussion around what must be part of the construct of that person that led them to believe that that was going to be a sign of solidarity and positivity. And signs of solidarity and positivity do not harm other groups of people. So I don't know everything about everything, but I know in that situation, that was an extremely harmful action, that I need to make peace with the fact that that person might not ever come to that conclusion. And so how can I release that piece of it away and pick up the ways in which I can insulate and support who that impacted? I mean, it impacted me, but there's other people that were impacted about, like, how can I impact that? And so that's where I always land. And sometimes that line is squiggly, and I am pacing around my desk in my office, and I am cussing, and I am pissed because it was just so unnecessary. But I don't stay there. I feel the feels, and then I keep it moving because there's still work to be done. Like, there's still work to be done. But that particular piece yesterday, again, not surprised, but super challenged by how that was accepted and supported in that space, and that the excuses about it are already being made. And we're kind of in that cycle. It's unfortunate.
I'm experiencing you demonstrating your insulation and learning from you, like live right now, even like how you organized it, how you shared it, turning to your partner for support, turning to the brown liquid, when needed. We've shared some brown liquid.
We've shared some brown liquid before. It works. It works. It works. And I don't want to hide any of those things either, because it's like I don't have like a portable halo. People sometimes are like, I don't understand why. I'm like, I saw it. But if I engage my central nervous system at that level on every infraction, my life expectancy would be cut in half, right? Like the data shows. Even a report came out recently about Black women and the autoimmune disorders and how it's connected. I'm like, of course. So it's a self-preserving mechanism too. And that act in and of itself, in that public space, I don't always have to engage the audacity of the hate that exists. Sometimes it's a tap out. Sometimes it's a dance. Sometimes it's a lean in. Sometimes it's a march and protest. Sometimes it's an introspective, reflective practice and behavior. And this morning, when I woke up, I found myself in my meditative time praying for his soul. And some people are like, yeah, right. My friends will tell you, and it makes them mad. A lot of times they'll be like, what are you doing? I'm like, praying for my enemy. like I'm meditating over, because I have to put that force field, because I never want to resemble I do not want to match hate for hate, even though deep down I'm like, that would feel good for about 0 to 5 seconds. And then after that, I won't resemble myself. And I'm never going to let any act, any person, any situation, any system take me out of my healed self, ever. Not going to let that control, right? When I get to the point where I'm having out of body experiences and I don't resemble myself, I have become the same. I become the hated, the hateful person. I become the biased person. I become the oppressor. I'm not doing it. It's a bad model.
So much of the stuff, and especially social media and AI and all of these things that are happening, algorithms, they get us going. That it's exactly what they want to happen. And it divides and it weakens us. And you're saying it so beautifully because we all feel it, but there's an Autobahn, there's a big highway to go into that rage. And then believing everything. And then like you're more susceptible to conspiracy if it's about the other team. You're just vulnerable to those things. And now you're perpetuating it. And we only see the other side doing that. But I really, really like what you're saying about looking in a mirror and holding yourself responsible and accountable to be this change.
Yeah, we can't literally, as a Black female, I can't afford it. So in the last couple of days, the 6 a.m. call comes with my very close group of colleague, Black female CEOs, vice presidents, DEI practitioners. 6 a.m. call comes. 2 of them have already been, they're being fired, right? We got one that got laid off last week, 2 this morning. Okay, so we're on this call, right? And so I don't say anything the whole time. I'm sipping my good coffee. I'm not saying anything. Finally, one of them says, Pam, are you there? Oh, I'm here. Well, what do you think we should do? You know what I think you should do? Get a colonoscopy. Check your blood pressure. Get your mammogram. Start, get some CMOS. Like, to me, your whole strategic plan is take really good care of yourself. Because this next season, these next couple of years are going to be hard. And you can't do anything if you are ill and laden with stress and strain. So here's your plan. Take care of yourself. Because in that space with the DEIB work, if you can do that job, you can do any job. So it becomes, what can you do around change management, training and development, AI ethics, corporate responsibility? You are not your job, right? I know what it took to get there, and I know what it took to stay there as a Black woman. You have to speak the Queen's English, dance. I get it. Code switch. The only plan right now is to take care of yourself so you can be upright for the next chapters, because the tables will turn. And if you can't be on the front line doing the work of harmony and peace and forgiveness and mercy and grace, that's the tragedy. That's the problem. The common enemy is not all that mess. The common enemy is the narrative that we have decided that we are not worth being taken care of. So while you're over there trying to figure out how to keep your job and, should I go in and beg for my job? Nope. Consider this transition a gift. You have all the time in the world to take care of yourself and fortify yourself and nourish yourself. The fear of income and all that, I get that. I've been there. It won't matter if I'm ill and in a hospital. And I refuse to allow the stress and strain of my existence in my skin that is other people's issue take me out. I'm just not. So we had that talk this morning. There was a lot of tears and, challenge and frustration.
So when you say those things to those women, do they, I have tears as you're talking and just feel like, again, this is just healing conversation. But do they experience it that way, or do they feel betrayed by, how does that land?
Oh, they don't mince words with me. Some of them are like, okay, you're right. Let me get information. Others are like, that is batshit crazy. What are you talking about? I got to feed my family. Either way, I'm here for all of it. We are such conditional passengers with each other, and we miss out. I am not a conditional passenger. I'm going to ride till the wheels fall off. If you are in my circle, if I consider you a friend, there's not really any version of yourself if you're being honest and forthcoming, that I'm not willing to show up for. I don't care how messy it is. Life is messy. We are imperfect. We all have stuff. But I'm always going to show up for the person that's willing to acknowledge it and do the work, who might slip and have to come back around. I'm always going to be there for that. So that call was hard today. And there was a lot of tears. And these are women who have gotten every possible credential. They have checked every box, done it the right way. And they're taking out their whole departments without warning and out here scrambling. And it's hard to watch. And I still say the best thing you can do is take care of yourself because it is on you. So yeah, I'm serious. Go get your colonoscopy. I know you've been waiting. You haven't done this because why don't you go get, you've had eye strain for years. Why don't you get that checked out? We are the last to take care of ourselves because it's always seen as a luxury, and rest and self-care is a right.
I'm really jazzed about our sponsor, Peak Nandeca. I literally drink it every morning. Sue can attest to that because I love the way it makes me feel. When they reached out to be a sponsor, I was a little skeptical because I'm not a coffee drinker, but I had really been curious because my caffeine intake had gone up and up and up because I was really craving that kind of alert focus that caffeine gave me. But I was feeling bad, too much jitters. I didn't like it. So I was really curious about this. And I can tell you that I really love it. It increases my focus, clarity, and my metabolism. I can feel the difference when I drink it. It's a slow release caffeine from probiotic fermented teas and mushrooms. They're functional mushrooms and they add cacao to enhance cellular function, and it works to balance the stress response, but it elevates my mood and my focus. And one of the fun things is that this new year, I have really wanted to get off any processed foods. And so as a side note, since I'd been drinking it regularly, I put it into assessment in AI, like, is this a processed food? I've been doing that a lot and been surprised how much things come back as processed. This was not. It is fermented tea that's triple toxin screened. So it really has unmatched purity and the fruity body mushrooms. The quality is excellent, and I loved getting an outside confirmation of that. So right now you can get 20% off plus a free starter kit when you shop exclusively at peaklife.com/TU. So that's PIQUELIFE.com/TU, Peak Life. Our human body never ceases to amaze me. Every day it's working to keep us strong, mobile, and connected to others. We speak a lot about neuroplasticity on our podcast and our body's ability to continue to grow throughout our lives. And it's hugely important how we can rebuild ourselves. But of course, as time goes by, we often could use just a little extra support to keep those natural processes going. So that's why I'm excited about Ancient Nutrition's multi-collagen advanced lean supplement. Here's what caught my attention. They've taken a lot of wisdom for what we know our body needs and combined it with modern science to create something actually pretty special. We're talking about a premium formula with 10 types of collagen from 10 real food sources. And believe me, quality matters. Now, I appreciate how they focus on overall wellness. Their clinically studied formula helps with healthy weight management and building lean muscle. It helps us also reduce joint discomfort, which for me is really important after my workout. So the best part is it's pretty simple. You just add it to your coffee or morning smoothies. It's not very complicated. Ancient Nutrition is offering 25% off your first order when you go to ancientnutrition.com/TU. So that's ancientnutrition.com/TU for 25% off your first order. ancientnutrition.com/TU.
So I've been using AG1 now for over 6 months, which for me is amazing. I forget things a lot, but I make sure to make an effort to keep taking this and to do it regularly because it gives me all the good things. First and foremost, we keep hearing about gut biome and how important it is to mood and stress and all kinds of things. And I haven't quite known what to do about my gut biome. So AG1 is my answer. It has quality vitamins, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens, which calm down your overeager stress response system. I like that the ingredients are tested by a third party to ensure that what they say is what you get. I feel good about recommending that you try it, and I encourage you to keep taking it if you already are on board. Go to athleticgreens.com/therapist-uncensored. Be sure and use that link because for our listeners, you'll get a free year's supply of vitamin B and free travel packets for you to be able to take this superpower on the road. That's athleticgreens.com/therapist-uncensored. You know, you also are a DEI trainer. How do you understand the attack? Is it just blatant racism? Is it, again, looking at it from their side or trying to find our second and third and fourth thoughts about something? How have you wrapped your mind around it?
In the work that I have been engaged in, the organizations that took on DEIB really didn't understand the work. And that comes from having a lack of organizational identity and core values that you practice every day. So it's already, in many cases, that foundation was laid on shaky ground anyway. For the situations where they're pulling back, fear is a booger and such a liar. So a lot of that, I think, is fear. I'm not endorsing it or condoning it. You know how it feels when you're afraid. It ushers in some behaviors that you might not even actually do on a regular basis. So I think
I love you saying fear is a liar.
Fear is a liar. Fear is a liar and also a slow gangster. Like, my daughter has come to work for me as a director of operations. It's a big step for her. She's 17, but she's awesome. And so she's been on a couple, 21 days. And I've had a couple speaking engagements, and I came off the stage and I was like, oh man, I almost threw up. Like, that one was rough. She's like, what? I go, oh, I was scared to death. And she's like, I couldn't tell. I'm like, oh, that's a lot. I said, but I do it scared. I do it. She was just so baffled. Mom, what? I'm like, oh, I didn't know how that was going to work out. But I think that you have to be willing to step into your own purpose and say, I don't know exactly what that's going to be, but I'm going to do it scared. And I believe organizations are afraid of how it's going to impact the bottom line. So they're just like, we got to move. But really the answer is belonging and diversity impact the bottom line, data shows, in immense ways. But now there's such a fear of the leadership and the administration and what is to come that it's hard to hold the line. So what I've been saying to organizations the last 72 hours is, who are you going to be? Like, take it back to the basics. What is your organizational identity? What are your values? How do you access your being? How do you uplift unique gifts in this organization? And if you are not going to do that, don't be fraudulent. Tell the employees that you are actually not going to honor belonging and let them go so that they don't sit in a space that's inauthentic every day.
Or that's toxic.
Well, it's going to become toxic, and then they're going to become resentful, and it's going to be a lot of energy spent on that. So I've been real honest with organizations. I think a lot of what is being experienced too is, so there's just a lot of leaders that lack courage. The longer I live, courage is a thing. And a lot of people are not willing to take the risk that comes with courage. And then there's a group of us that don't know any other way to be because we haven't had the luxury to not be courageous. I don't even have the luxury to not be courageous. I don't even know what that looks like. I do a lot of things scared. I walked into a 7-Eleven the other day scared when I looked at who was in the store. I had to talk myself into it because I'm like, this could end badly. People have a lot of audacity to say whatever.
Has that changed with this change in administration? Have you noticed that just on the street? Does it feel different?
It's already been building. I think people hide behind their social media keyboards all the time. I've had friends that I've had since middle school who have been like, I love America. My America's back and you better like it. And I'm like, oh, dang, bye. Guess we're not going to brunch, because I'm going to, again, protect myself. Not everything is a curated, teachable moment. I'm tapping out on those, right? I am going to try softer in 25. And trying softer means I'm going to make sure that I'm okay. And I encourage people to do that. I am trying softer.
Well, because it's actually dangerous. It's actually dangerous. I have every privilege, as a white person in the world. But as a gay person, I have noticed, I haven't seen anything outwardly, but I've noticed my inner, the feelings that I have, I feel less safe. I don't think about it. I think about it again. And it's been a long time since, especially living in Austin, Texas and things like that. Even just Ann and I walking down the road or something, like in a liberal community, my scanner is back on in a way that I think it always is, but I can feel it. I can feel the difference for sure.
I only feel 100% safe in my own home. Even when I'm out with friends, I am constantly scanning. The thing that gives me the pit in my stomach every day is when my children drive off from this house.
I bet. Oh, God.
I cannot explain to you the level of fear that we feel every day. We talk about it almost every day, and we have a commitment to not let that energy seep onto them, but we also don't want them to be unaware. So we got to have some talks, but we don't want them so freaked out either. But I worry about both Allison and Preston every day when they drive off if we're not with them.
And this is such a good example of that systematic piece where that security in your home looks a little different than security in my home. It necessarily does. There's different training, there's different awarenesses. So if you're traditionally trained, you cannot understand that and then see that as something else, when in fact, it's like one of the conditions for security. You said, I only feel safe in my home. And, we talk about secure relating. So can you say, because you're a good person to say this, if you only feel safe in your home, what is secure relating then? How do you securely relate without the feeling of safety? Because you can, and you are. But how do you do that? And how do you think about that?
So we were just talking about this because we went to a restaurant the other night and I watched Arlen figure out which table he could sit at where he could see the door and get out. We've always done that, but now he's even more vigilant. So when we sat down, that was a brown liquor night. When we sat down, the definition of safety becomes, in this skin, how do you remain vigilant but not become victimized? It's a thin line of intersection. I got to remain aware.
But you want to be there with your partner and be in his eyes. And yeah.
Yep. So we're constantly, and so Arlen will say, like, I'm trying to figure out a way to be able to have both butt cheeks on the seat, is what he'll say, right? Because he's always like one off. Like, I got to be ready to activate, especially when we're out with our kids. And so we just make a commitment all the time to being vigilant but not victimized. And it's hard. So it's really hard, but I also don't want to live out my days in that level. So when you think about secure relating, it becomes the opportunity to lean into the people that you trust and love. So I can experience secure relating in a big restaurant with my spouse or my friends, and know now that I started verbalizing that more to my friends that love me, they've heightened their vigilance around us in spaces, which has been beautiful. And I know it's probably a challenge because they have not had that experience, but it's been beautiful for there to be a shared vigilance in a meaningful way, like truly like, hey, I'm watching. But we also have to do trainings with our kids that other people don't do. Like Arlen said to Allison the other day, I know you're going to the store, get a receipt. I know you know this, but now more than ever, you need a receipt for everything, even your icy, even your coffee. Get a receipt. You don't ever want to be accused of taking something. Hey, I need you when you're running this neighborhood, no more headphones. But Dad, I can't listen to my favorite music. Can't. Because I need you to be able to see around you at all times. It's a no. Preston, I know that you are challenged with eye contact. Preston's on the autism spectrum, but now eye contact, especially now, could be life or death. Bubba, I really need you to work on your executive functioning skills when you are not with us. Right? Hey, bring us all your hoodies. You're not wearing hoodies. 100%. 100%. We just had this discussion. Do we need to put them in some self-defense classes? The kids are not spending the night at anybody's homes, which sucks for them, but we just don't know. A lot of people will present as accepting and then harm people in their private homes. I don't have any control over that. So now you just don't go. So that's unfortunately impacted their social lives. But we have to fold in. I mean, I've had to do some travel to some small towns in the last couple of months. And if you saw the prep that Arlen gives me, because I carry 2 firearms in my vehicle now, one under my seat and one in the back pocket. He does almost a military, like somebody pulls up and he tests me on how quickly I can get the gun out of the back pocket and be prepared. That's not fun. I just want to travel with my Twizzlers and stop at Buc-ee's. So now I have a whole, and the last time it was, don't stop to go to the bathroom, because there's 2 sundowner towns in the same area where you're going through College Station. Sundowner, you're not going to the bathroom. Meaning places where Black people cannot be when the sun goes down. They still exist. There's a book. It's still published. Can't go. So if you see a couple in a row, now I got a whole going to the bathroom. I can't stop for my favorite drink. And I got to be ready to pull a gun. It's not a pleasant road trip.
And yet you're talking about this serenity, this grace, this peace. Let me ask you, is the concept of secure relating insulting coming from 2 white women? Is it an insulting concept?
It's not an insulting concept. So let me tell you that when I went into this experience, I was preparing to be insulted. I was like, here we go. Heaping doses of caucasity. Here we go. That's what I call audacity with white women, caucasity. Here we go. It's going to be a bunch of caucasity. I didn't experience that. I think it was the best handbook around the brain, like the neuroscience. Like there is a actual physiological reason how this occurs. I think when you got to around page 150, 151, and you're talking about systems and racism, I mean, you called it, like you named it. That was a turning point for me. I'm like, they are not afraid to name it. Had you danced around it, it would have probably been problematic. But my experience with this book, you've heard me say it, and I continue to say it, and I've referred it probably 1 million times to people, is that you went all in, even when it was uncomfortable. I mean, I can't even experience. And I'm like, I actually said to a friend, I was like, you're going to read this book. And when you think about it from the co-author's perspective, I said, they probably lost some friends.
Well, but I also don't like the difficulty for us in saying it is just not even in the same universe as what you're describing day to day.
Well, I think the point is, I don't think comparing is good. I think that it's your own journey and we all have different starting points, but it doesn't dismiss the level of difficulty, because there's a lot of things y'all could have just left out of this book and it would have been a quality book, right? There's probably 4 books in this book. You could have done small pamphlets and bite-sized doses for your white friends. That's not what you did. You dropped it all. You literally left it all on the line. And so I don't spend a lot of time going, well, they can do that because they're privileged. My perspective is they didn't have to write this book. You could have gone, lived out your days and never tackled this. So I have immense respect for that. The fact that your experience and my experience look different doesn't make your experience less. It just makes it different. So I don't really go there.
Well, you're doing it right now. You're doing we started out talking about, like holding everybody's perspective and inviting and holding yourself. You're not diminished at all, but you're also able to hold me at the same time. And when, I guess, is it caucasity for the shame and stuff that we feel? Was it caucasity, like all the gifts that you received around
the crying? It's not even the gifts. I think the gifts were we didn't know what to do. The crying and the centering your experience in the experience is caucasity for me. Like we started off talking about this and now it's become centered in your discomfort. And I think that's where people of color tap out. Like we just did all this work. I've just been vulnerable with you and now we're back to why it's hard for you. And I think that is the part that we don't talk about a lot. But I will say this to you is that the reason why even in as we got to know each other, we've already had some hard conversations. The reason why I felt like I could have those hard conversations is because of the way in which you did not shy away from the hard topics that you covered in the book. I would have never said, okay, let's unpack that for a minute. Or wait a minute, what did we experience there when we did the program? I would have never gone in that direction if I didn't see. I think people forget that we have an opportunity to honor effort and honor progress. We're not perfect. Are there things that are going to slip in? Yeah, but I can honor the effort of like even asking the question. You don't have to ask the question. You could have kept it surface and tied up in a nice, neat little bow. But the questions you're asking me are like really honest, serious questions that aren't going to have perfect, beautiful answers, you know? And so I think it would have been a tragedy if you didn't write the book. My thing is, how do we get more people to be open to receiving what's in the book and not shut down? I mean, you could shut down in chapter 2 and be like, forget it. Like, because it's, even though it's backed in science, you feel butt naked. You're like, oh crap, I do that, or like whatever it is. And people usually just run in that. And I wish people would lean into the messy middle of this work. It's been a game changer for me. I saw myself in a lot of places, but it also taught me some things about pushing through when you're not regulated. I used to do that because I thought I had to. I don't. It's a hard stop for me. I even use that language with people. When it gets to a point where I don't feel like I recognize myself, it's like hard stop. That's my code word. And I stop. And I used to have shame around like, you should have stuck in there and battled it out. I don't have to do that. So I think what's next will be interesting in terms of how you might move the work forward. But I really don't I can't speak for everybody. I'm not offended by it. I am intrigued by the willingness to do it.
Right. And also like, giving ourselves permission that we don't have to get it all right or say everything. But this is why you and I are having this conversation, is because you can speak to the things that I don't know and can't speak to. And this is why this is going to go out to the world, get your perspective out there, is because we don't know it all. And we can't know it all. But yeah, again, it's the striving. And I like you talking about the work that is required, because there's a way that then all of our differences around the world can fall away, because we're these human bodies built with this, defensive system and patterns that are created that were adaptive when we were young. And all of a sudden now there's a lot of similarity. It's hard. You want to flee. You want to look away. You want to blame. You want to detract. Because it's hard to do that, looking in the mirror. And it's that you're talking about on this bus, of like people that are willing to look in the mirror and know they're not perfect and we're all in process. It just makes a real inviting place that we don't have to have it all together. And you really have embodied that. You really, I was testing you, right? Like Elon Musk and the border and
yeah, some hard ones. Yeah.
Yeah, real hard ones. And even, and even this, and you really are walking the walk. You're doing it as we're talking. It's great.
Well, what's been interesting to me is two things. A, as I have friends who have known me a long time, who have done some work too, sometimes the white female friends get pissed off at me. Why are you being no, you should be mad. I'm like, oh, I am mad. But my anger, if I access my anger, it is career shortening for me. You get to access it in ways that it's uplifted. If I access it, it's career shortening, and having those conversations. And now what's really been interesting is I have verbalized to colleagues and friends, I'm not coming tonight because the white female ratio is at a high and I do not have the bandwidth to navigate that environment tonight. but you have a great time doing your vision boards. Would love to go to coffee with you one-on-one. Just real talk. Like, I don't have it to give, because there was a rage moment for me with the election where I was like, get your white friend, call your white girlfriend and tell her she messed us up. Like, I was mad. Like, how did that happen? And to be able to just speak into that around people that I really trust was powerful. And to say, no, I actually don't want to go to have pancakes and soothe myself. Call your sister that voted. Your time is better spent calling your sister and your aunt and your cousins. Like, I got nothing. And so I've been able to be in that space too. And that's been liberating too in its own way. And people think that those conversations will diminish relationships. Those conversations have made me closer in my relationships in a lot of settings. I have a friend that I've had for decades, and we don't look anything alike. Trust me. And we've had some really hard conversations. My business colleague, Kristen, that I'm partners with, just the other week, we had a situation where we were in a space to get a client, and I had experienced a concussion, and I was supposed to have a follow-up appointment with a doctor. And I told her, I have a doctor's appointment. And she went back to the prospective client and said, Pam can't come and I said, you can't. What are you doing? Don't tell him I can't come. We're going to lose the gig. And she's like, oh my gosh. I was like, you white woman did. I didn't ask you to tell them that. And I cannot be seen as the one messing up the schedule. And she's like, I see it. I got it. And it made us closer. And she's like, I stepped in when I shouldn't have. I was going into, because you deserve to go to the doctor. I'm like, don't help me. Don't help me. And she was like, I see it. And you think that's going to be a bad thing? We're closer today because we had that conversation, and again, I don't think she was acting out of malice or ill will. I think she genuinely cares about me. And she's like,
it's ignorance. We don't see it.
I want you to be able to go to the doctor. I'm like, girl, don't help us. We're trying to get this gig. This is not the time to reschedule. So in my world, a reschedule comes with all this baggage. Not competent, unorganized, bad time manager. She reschedules all the time, and there's not a cost. I reschedule, it's a problem. So she's like, I see it. It's a great learning opportunity.
Yeah, no, I love it. And most of it, many of us at least, want it. Like, it's helpful. This is, again, part of why I want to amplify all this stuff that you're telling us. So you mentioned kind of next steps as we just kind of begin to shift and look ahead. What are your next steps? What's happening there? And I would love to hear what you feel like our next step should be.
So my next steps are to realize that it's not a race. It's about pace. And so I am slowing down at this time. I am really looking at the work that I want to do in the next chapters of my business. I am doing some virtual teaching around how to really embody your gifts and talents. I'm coaching a lot of leaders. I'm rescoping my clients around organizational culture. And I've just made a commitment that if it's not a hell yes, it's a no in this season. I'm really only doing work that I really want to do. So that's exciting. And as an entrepreneur, always scary, but that's exciting. And I'm only saying yes to stuff I really want to do. And it's been fun. And just taking good care of myself and my health. What I would say about the next steps for the work that you're doing is to keep going, to do so with radical courage and care, and to keep asking the questions and then getting still enough to hear the answers. But I think that this podcast offering, I think there's another book to be written, probably, maybe a show. I think that this work is like basic need critical. I think it would help. We talk about it quite a bit. There's probably some work to be done for a book for kids. Like, if I knew this at the age of my kids now, would have been helpful. So I look back on so many instances. I was like, oh, I see what that was now.
Well, so you're an author. You're an author.
Mm-hmm. I'm an author.
Yeah. Why don't we? Because I'm also thinking about people. You're fantastic. People listening that might want to contact you. So what are some resources that you have, and how would they reach you?
So my website is PamelaBensonOwens.com. I do on Facebook, and although I'm considering what that's going to look like in these chapters on Instagram, you can always find what I call the Lessons of Lists, which is my latest book, and it's always a list of my learnings for the week. So you can always catch me there. And then you can look on my website for the offerings that are coming this way. And I will tell you, I have definitely done a lot of journaling around what a collaborative book might look like with us. Like I'll be honest in that. And it's hard to say that because I'm also a fan, possibly a groupie at this point. But I also get to be friends with y'all, so that's fun. But I just think there's something to be had, and I think it will organically reveal itself.
Well, I think that is beautiful, and I highly recommend the books. The blogs, the writing that you do is incredible, and you are just a healer. You are just a healer, and I feel healed every time I'm with you. So, all right, everybody, if you're still with us, it means you're probably feeling something similar to me. So much gratitude, and we want to ask you to help us make this kind of content to get it out there more. So please do share the episode, leave us a rating and review. And the book that we've referenced several times is Secure Relating, Holding Your Own in an Insecure World. And you can get that wherever you get your books. Let's see, what else? And
can I just show them? And can I just show them how worn my book is? It's so embarrassing. Can I?
Sure.
I mean, this is.
So it's got a few tabs on it.
I
mean, for those that aren't visually seeing it.
Got a couple notes.
Well, we've got more to do together, that's for sure. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening, and we're going to see you around the bend.
Therapist Uncensored is Ann Kelly and Sue Marriott. This podcast is edited by Jack Anderson.